Hello, sports card fans and wrestling card enthusiasts. It's Tom here from CollectAWrestlePalooza. If you've never been to this channel, welcome. We feature all things professional wrestling, sports card collecting, nostalgia, 1980s, 1990s, you name it, VHS, action figures, and of course sports cards. Today's video I'm talking about 1982 and 1983 Wrestling All-Stars trading cards. Specifically, I'm talking about sales that were completed in eBay auctions during the month of August 2023. There's some really interesting things going on in the market, and there's some shocking prices. More about that later in the video. Let's get to it.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.
Alright, so for the sake of transparency, I do want to tell you I don't know if these eBay listings actually went through and were paid. I simply filtered sold and completed listings from eBay auctions for Wrestling All-Stars 1982 or 1983 PSA graded and slabbed trading cards. The first one here is Bobo Brazil. Does not get as much cardboard love as I think that this superstar deserves. Pretty straightforward though. We see a PSA 9 that sold for $81 and a PSA 8 that sold for $44. And I want you to take a look at the multiple. Now what a multiple means is how much more does a higher grade sell than a lower grade. In this case, the multiple between an 8 and a 9 is just 2. The PSA 9 sold for twice as much as the PSA 8. Is that a trend that's going to continue? Let's see here. Next one is Sergeant Slaughter. This is one of the higher priced cards from the series. PSA 9 went for $810. Quite a chunk of change for a trading card, right? But look at the PSA 8. $280. Multiple of 3 between the PSA 8 and the PSA 9. Back to pay 2 to 3 times what you would for a PSA 8 for a PSA 9, right? Is that the trend we're going to see? We also see strong sales in a PSA 6, only about a third as much as a PSA 8. So you might say a 6, 7, and 8 are about the same, maybe 2 to 3 times the multiple there, and then the PSA 9, maybe another 2 to 3 time multiple. Let's see if this trend continues. We're moving on to Billy Robinson. One thing I love about all of these nostalgia sets is some of the mid-carders or jobbers got cards as well. I don't know anything about Billy Robinson, but he will forever be immortalized on cardboard in the Wrestling All-Stars 1982 series. But let's look at the prices here. PSA 9 for $83. PSA 7 for $25. Again, a multiple of 3. Not a ton of money, just less than a hundo to buy one of his cards in a PSA 9. That's a 1982, 1983 card in a PSA 9 for under $100. Seems like a good value. Moving on here to a legend, we have Terry Funk. His prices have gone up recently due to his untimely passing, or I should say his timely passing. I think that we all expected that to happen. We love you, Terry. But we'll look at a PSA 9 here. Now we're starting to see some higher prices, $300. Certainly not in the realm of Sergeant Slaughter. If anyone knows why certain PSA 9s are less than other PSA 9s for equitable legends, please leave comments below. But we're seeing here $300 for a PSA 9. Again, a PSA 8, PSA 7, about the same. Not much difference there. Multiple of 2 or 3. Moving on here, Mr. Wrestling 2, PSA 9 for $100. Again, wrestling legend for a PSA 9 for an old vintage card for about a hundo. That seems like a nice pickup. PSA 7 for about $30. Again, a multiple of 3. Now let's look at Ken Patera. Again, this is a string of sales to legitimize the theory here that a PSA 9 is a multiple of 2 or 3 over the other ones. I mean, you've got 172, 74, 40, 23. Goes down in a pretty straight line. You don't see too much of a curve there. It's pretty linear. PSA 9 selling for, 2 to 3 times what a PSA 8. PSA 8 selling for about twice PSA 7. PSA 7 selling for about twice PSA 6. And all those sales happened in the same month. One reason I stuck to PSA graded cards is not because I prefer those, but because it's just a standard. It makes a control for this. So same time frame in sales, all standard markings with the grades. We're seeing a straight line. Moving on to Sweet Brown Sugar. Now we're starting to see a premium here, right? PSA 9 for $170. and then PSA 8 for only $60. We got a multiple of a PSA 9 over a PSA 7, which sold for $35, of about 5 times as much. So PSA 8 is still about twice PSA 7, but then you see a bigger jump between 8 and 9 and 7 to 9. Now we're moving on to Dick the Bruiser. Again, about the same as Sweet Brown Sugar. PSA 7 sold for a little bit less, $23. But the PSA 9 sold for a little bit less than the Sweet Brown Sugar PSA 9, but still a multiple of about 5 to 6, somewhere in there, between the 7 and the 9. Now let's play a guessing game here. So Jesse Ventura, using that theory, PSA 7 sold for $158. How much do you think the PSA 9 sold for? If you guessed anywhere between $600 to $800, again a multiple of 4 or 5 over the PSA 7, you're right, sold for $721. So that makes sense, right? Now let's move into some cards that the prices might shock you a little bit. At least they shocked me. Let's look at Bob Backlund. PSA 7 only sold for $58. So how much did the PSA 9 sell for? Now, given Bob Backlund is a legend that doesn't get much cardboard love, PSA 7 for only $60, you'd imagine that the PSA 9 would be, maybe $200, $300, somewhere around there, right? Using that 5 to 6 multiple. No, the PSA 9 sold for $612, a multiple of about 10 or 11 over the PSA 7. Let's continue here. Dick Murdoch. PSA 7 only sold for $20. So how much would the PSA 9 sell for? Maybe you'd guess $100, $150, $260. We're seeing a trend here now. Bill Dundee. PSA 7 sold for $32. How much did a PSA 9 sell for? $706. Why is that? If anyone knows why these PSA 9s are selling at such high multiples to the PSA 7s, is this card unique? Is this color of the Wrestling All-Stars harder to grade? Are the pop counts lower? Please leave comments and let me know, because these sales shocked and surprised me. Dino Bravo. All right, we see another linear sort of progression. PSA 6 actually sold for more than a PSA 7, but 6 and 7 right around $25, $30. PSA 8 maybe about twice that, $50, $60. So how much is the PSA 9 gonna go for? Again, what, a couple $100 maybe? $678. Let that sink in a little bit here. $678 for Dino Bravo PSA 9. Now that seems like it could be. Dino Bravo is a legend and just had a Dark Side of the Ring episode. People might be buying his cardboard. But for that to sell so much more than the 7s and 8s, maybe the 7 and 8s are undervalued this month. Maybe those are the ones that are going to rise. Who knows? Now, the final card in my study here is the one that you saw on the thumbnail of this video, Bobby Duncum. Don't know anything about this guy, so you'd expect a PSA 7 for $20, right? Just a mid-carder, someone I don't know much about. Nice graded card, PSA 7, pretty standard, $20. PSA 8, a little nicer, all right, $80. That's a strong sale, maybe. PSA 9, maybe $200-300, right? $888 for a PSA 9 Bobby Duncum. Why is that, folks? Help me out here. What's going on with the Wrestling All-Stars? It was a very, very fun study for me to go through and just look at eBay auctions and see what grades were selling for more. Looks like there's some definite legitimacy or legs in the PSA 9s of some of these cards. Is that going to continue? Are people just looking for high grades and the other legends PSA 9s are going to start selling for more? Time will tell. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Have a great week. Enjoy.
CollectAWrestlePalooza. CollectAWrestlePalooza.